So, you've decided to play the Spirit, all our favorite mommy, sword-wielding lady with anger issues. And now, you're looking for some tips and tricks? Well, lucky for you! In this video, we'll cover some essential tips and tricks to help you master the Spirit and make survivors regret every step they take. Before we get into it though, this video is actually a follow-up to my ultimate guide to the Spirit video. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend you go watch it first, as this video builds upon the basics covered in that one. Link in info card and description. Now, since you're still here, I'll assume you already know the basics of the Spirit. Instead, I'm going to cover some of the more obscure, niche tips and tricks that I don't see much talk about elsewhere. First, I'll talk about sound, then we'll go through the Spirit's ability and some quirks and mind games you can abuse. Finally, I'll show you some niche tips and tricks that can completely turn the game around if you're lucky, as well as some small but important things that might be losing you games. The first advice I have for sound is to stop using scratch marks. It might seem counterintuitive to talk about scratch marks under the title sound, but this is because you should use sound instead of scratch marks. This is because scratch marks are very inconsistent and have a delay before they appear. They also disappear if a survivor starts walking, which will really throw you off if you rely on them. That's not to mention perks like Off the Record, Dance With Me, Lightweight, and Parental Guidance, among many others, that partially or fully hide scratch marks. Furthermore, there is no difference between survivor scratch marks, meaning you can suddenly be chasing the wrong survivor. This is especially probable as you cannot see blood pools while in phase. If you use sound, however, you can tell which survivor you're chasing based on their breathing noise. It is also a lot easier to tell where a survivor is using sound. Not only does sound lack a delay, but if a survivor starts walking, they will still breathe loudly for a short period of time, meaning you can still tell where they are. Another advice is something you have probably heard 1,000 times. Just get better headphones and crank the volume. While these pieces of advice are very true, nobody explains what these magical better headphones actually are. The truth is, the only part that really matters is that your headphones are wired and not Bluetooth. This is a very important detail, as Bluetooth headphones make it impossible to play the Spirit effectively. This is because of audio latency in Bluetooth codecs and modern hardware. Playing with wired headphones is a huge advantage, even when not playing the Spirit. I cannot recommend it enough. For comparison, here's wired, and here's Bluetooth. There is also a second part to having good headphones. What if I told you you can get good headphones right now without buying a new pair of headphones? While good headphones generally have good tuning out of the box, you can EQ your headphones to reduce the usually bloated lower frequencies, making it easier to hear the smaller details such as breathing and grunts. Reducing the frequencies below 100 Hz will help tremendously. If you want a full guide on how you can do that and more to optimize your game audio, I have another video on just that. However, it doesn't matter how good your headphones are, pinpointing a survivor's location using only sound is impossible. This is where the most important part of playing the Spirit comes in: predictions. Sound isn't the main component to figure out where survivors are. Instead, you should try to predict where they are going and confirm whether you were right or wrong using said sound. This isn't something you'll learn overnight, it takes a lot of time to learn and perfect. However, once you learn this skill, your Steam profile will be filled with comments from displeased Meg mains accusing you of cheating. This next piece of advice is a very niche but useful trick I haven't seen anyone talk about. It's turning your camera to listen rather than look. What does this mean? Well, the human ear is a lot better at hearing to the sides rather than up and down or front and back. This makes sense since we don't have ears in those directions. However, this effect is amplified with headphones as they struggle to replicate soundstage accurately. In order to compensate for this, you can turn your camera so that the sides are pointing in the direction you want to hear. This will make hearing what is in front of you and behind you a lot easier, making it near impossible for survivors to juke you by running toward and past you while you phase. With the ability, there are a few tricks you can use to improve your chances at getting a hit. First of all, when you start phasing, you'll leave behind a husk until you stop phasing. As I talked about last time, this husk has a hitbox and can be used to block a path. However, if you position yourself perfectly, it can also be used to block a pallet or window. In this case, if the survivor chooses to vault from the other side into the husk, they will get stuck between the pallet and the husk. This means you can get a free hit by facing back to the husk and swinging. The extra good thing about this is that they cannot vault back. Pulling this off, however, is very tricky, as you need to position yourself very precisely and hope that the survivor doesn't just run to the next window or pallet instead of vaulting into the husk. However, when you do get a hit this way, it is very satisfying. It is also good to know that there is no animation when the spirit is facing to the survivor. This means that a possible mind game is just to stand still as they might think you're facing and preemptively run past you, resulting in a free hit. Beware that most skilled survivors will not fall for this fake face, as they rely on the whooshing sound the spirit makes when she faces. However, as this whooshing sound only starts about a second after you actually face, you can use their cautiousness or overconfidence against them. By starting to face toward them, you can trick them into thinking you're going around, forcing them into a split-second decision of whether to vault or call the bluff. Most of the time, they will vault, at which point you can double back and swing. If you're even closer and they're camping a pallet, you might even be able to rush the pallet as the face sound comes so late they won't be able to react. This is why having standoffs with the spirit is so dangerous. The most important tip I have for the spirit's ability is to think of it less as an ability and more as an extension of normal chase. What I mean is, in the same way that some pallets aren't mind gameable for M1 killers, some aren't for the spirit. Her ability simply helps you mind game the already mind gameable locations easier, thanks to the increased movement speed. So when you see a really safe loop, such as the shack, instead of trying to mind game, just break the pallet before facing. This will save you plenty of time in chase. This last group of advice is not game changing, but rather smaller things you can do that might help you in very specific niche cases. A small mind game you can try is looking in a different direction than you're going to face. This mainly works against survivor friends, as they are likely to communicate where you are heading. So going in another direction than you were looking can completely throw them off. This can be particularly useful if you're already chasing someone, but see another survivor on a gen nearby. Looking at the survivor you were chasing, then facing to the gen, can result in a free hit if the survivor isn't paying attention. Another tip is to pay more attention to your environment. While survivors aren't visible, the things they interact with will still have effects. The most common of these, that you have probably heard of plenty of times, is the grass moving when the survivor runs through it. However, this also applies to things like repairing generators or performing an unhook. While it is difficult to notice these small effects, when you do, it tells you almost exactly where survivor is and can result in a free hit. As mentioned earlier, the spirit's M1 capabilities are very poor. However, she actually has a decent passive ability that can help you get some cheeky hits when you're on cooldown. If you ever went against the spirit as a survivor, you've probably noticed she tends to blink in and out of sight sometimes. This is called passive facing. As it's passive, you cannot control it, but if you're lucky, it might proc while you're mind gaming, which can cause the survivor to hesitate as they don't know whether you double backed or not, resulting in a hit. This is not a consistent way of getting hits, but if you're waiting for the ability to recharge, it's definitely worth a shot. The last tips are more than something to be cautious of rather than tips. Firstly, when the spirit is facing, she cannot see blood pools. This might seem like a small nerf, but it's actually huge. This means that if a survivor is body blocking, then splits off, you won't know who went what way, unless you can hear the injured survivor's grunts. If they have Iron Will or similar perks, you're out of luck. There is no real way to counter this. Secondly, a lot of maps like Autohaven and Macmillan have these fire barrels. These are the banes of Spirit Main's existence. Not only are they loud and conceal any and all survivor noises, but at a distance, they also sound just like survivor footsteps. So, when you hear footsteps but can't find the survivor, don't worry, it's not the voices in your head, it's just a fire barrel. And that is just about all the advice I can give you for playing the spirit. Now, it is up to you to get out there and start grinding. I hope this video helped, and if you feel there's anything I missed, or if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. And, if you're interested in more content, check out this video where I tried to play the spirit without any audio.